Welcome back. The topic for the day is activity-based budgeting. In simple words, means preparing budgets by using the ABC techniques. Now, ABB can be treated as the twin of ABC. All the items that were there in ABC are there in ABB as well. So we will have a quick refresher of ABC so that we will be able to connect it with ABB. Your company manufactures two products. One is the 50cc bike and the second one is the 1000cc bike. So first we will see how overheads are divided between the two products under the activity-based costing method. So we will take one cost pool, that is the delivery cost. And what is the cost driver for the delivery cost? It is a number of deliveries. So assume that the delivery cost is $270,000. So you have to divide it between the two products. So that is a 50cc bike and the 1000cc bike. Now, if the total number of deliveries, what do you mean by deliveries? The number of times the product is delivered or transported from the factory to the showroom. So for the 50cc bike, the number of deliveries is 100. And for the 1000cc, it is 35 deliveries. So what are the total number of deliveries that are done? It is 100 plus 35 or 135. So what is the cost per driver? For 135 deliveries, the amount incurred is $270,000. So for one delivery, what is the cost? It is 270,000 divided by 135, or it is $2,000 per delivery. Then what is the next step that you do in ABC? You allocate the delivery cost to the 50cc and the 1000cc bike. That is between your two products. So for the 50cc bike, you have 100 deliveries. And for one delivery, the amount is $2,000. So what is the amount attributable to the 50cc bike? It is 100 multiplied by $2,000, or it is $200,000. And for the 1000cc bike, we have 35 deliveries and the cost per delivery is 2,000. So the amount to be allocated to the 1000cc bike is 35 multiplied by 2,000, or $70,000. So that is how we have allocated 270,000 between the two products. So 200,000 plus 70,000 works out to $270,000. So under ABC, what did we do? We worked from left to right, correct? 270,000 divided by 135 is equal to $2,000. Now I said that ABB is just the reverse of ABC. So basically you will have to work from right to left. So let's take a look how ABB is done. So under ABB, the first step is to identify the number of cost drivers needed for the budgeted sales. So that's the step one. So first we have to find out the number of cost drivers. That is, we have to find out 135. And the next step is to calculate the cost per driver. That is, we have to calculate $2,000. What is the cost per delivery we are supposed to calculate? And what is the final step? The final step is to calculate the budgeted overheads. That is the number of cost drivers, which is 135 multiplied by 2,000. We will get the overhead total. That is $270,000. So budgeted overhead cost will be number of cost drivers, that is 135 multiplied by cost per driver, that is 2,000. We get an amount of 270,000. So basically, it's working from right to left. Now we will work out an example so that you will be able to understand ABB better. So we have our two products, that is a 50cc bike and the 1000cc bike. So we will first start with the budgeted sales in units, because we are doing budgeting, right? So budgeted sales in units. So 50cc, we budget 2000 units, and for 1000cc, we budget 700 units. And usually the units per sales order is 20 units for the 50cc bike and 10 units for the 1000cc bike. That is, in each sales order for the 50cc bike, they will be ordering 20 units. And for the 1000cc bike, they will be ordering only 10 units. And who are these they? They are the distributors. The distributors are the people who purchase from the manufacturers. We are the people who are manufacturing these bikes. Now, what are we supposed to calculate? We want to find out the number of deliveries because that's the cost driver. So we will just assume that our delivery vehicle, the capacity of the delivery vehicle is to hold 20 bikes. So one truck can transport 20 bikes at a time. So what will be the number of deliveries? It will be 2000 divided by 20 or 100 times. So 100 times the truck has to travel from the factory to the showroom. And what about the 1000cc? 1000cc, the units per sales order is just 10, which means that 700 divided by 10 or 70 times the truck has to travel. So which means that the number of deliveries is 100 plus 70 or 170. So we have got the number of deliveries. And suppose each time that we are transporting the vehicles from the factory to the showroom, we are incurring an amount of $2,000. That is, for each delivery, the cost that is incurred by the company is $2,000. So what is the budgeted overhead cost? Simple, right? For each delivery, it is 2,000 and 170 times we have to deliver, which means that the budgeted overhead cost as far as the delivery cost is concerned is 170 multiplied by 2,000, or it is $340,000. So that's the budgeted cost. So this is how we do budgeting exercise under ABB. So if you've noticed, it is exactly the reverse of ABC. Now you people might be thinking, this is such an easy method. All that we have to find out is the number of cost drivers. Total the number of cost drivers and multiply it with the cost per driver. You get the budgeted overhead cost, correct? Well, activity-based budgeting does not end here. The main reason for companies to adopt activity-based budgeting is to find out ways and means of reducing cost. Here we have not made any attempt to reduce cost. So let's see how we can reduce the cost by implementing the activity-based budgeting. So the first step is to allocate the budgeted overhead cost of 340,000 between the two products. That is a 50cc and the 1000cc motorbike. So how do we allocate it? For one delivery, it's 2,000, and for 50cc, we are making 100 deliveries. So it's 100 multiplied by 2,000, or it is $200,000. Likewise, for 1000cc, we are making 70 deliveries and cost per delivery is 2,000. So 70 multiplied by 2,000, it is $140,000. So 200,000 plus 140,000 adds up to 340,000. Now let's find out what is the cost per unit. So $200,000 is for 2,000 units. So for one unit, what is the cost relating to the delivery cost? It is $200,000 divided by 2,000 units, or it is $100 per unit. Likewise, for 1000cc, what is the cost per unit as far as the delivery cost is concerned? The total delivery cost attributable to 1000cc is 140,000 for 700 units. So what is the cost per unit? It is $140,000 divided by 700 units, which amounts to $200 per unit. It is double that of the 50cc. From 50cc motorbike, the delivery cost per unit comes to only $100 per unit. But for the 1000cc, it comes to $200 per unit. Now, how do we reduce the delivery cost per unit as far as the 1000cc bike is concerned? Now, think for yourself. Now, the units that are ordered per sales order is 10, which means that the truck, which has a capacity of 20 vehicles, is only half full. If you can change the units that are ordered per sales order from 10 to 20, it means that the truck will be full and the number of times that the truck has to travel from the factory to the showroom will be drastically reduced. And thereby, we can have a savings there. So we could always ask the distributors to book in orders of 20. That is multiples of 20, so that the truck will be full. And if they do not agree on that, we could give discounts if they order in multiples of 20. So now let's implement the change and find out how much savings we can make. So instead of the units per sales order as 10 for the 1000cc, we will increase it to 20. So now the budgeted sales in units is 700 and units per sales order is 20. So what is the number of deliveries? Number of deliveries is 700 divided by 20, or it is just 35 deliveries. The truck need to travel between the factory to the showroom only 35 times as against 70 times that were done earlier. So now the total deliveries will be 100 plus 35 or 135. So the budgeted delivery cost will be 135 multiplied by 2000 per delivery. So it works out to just $270,000. So we've got a savings there. And if we are allocating it, we will be allocating 35 multiplied by 2000 or $70,000, which means that the cost per unit will be equal to 70,000 divided by 700 or $100 per unit. So we've reduced the delivery cost per unit of the 1000cc motorbike. So this is how we use activity-based budgeting for reducing the cost, because when we analyze the cost drivers, it gives us a clearer picture as to how we can reduce the cost by reducing the cost drivers. Now, in this particular case, that is as far as the delivery cost is concerned, how did we budget it? We multiplied the total number of cost drivers with the cost per driver. Now, for certain other expenses, we adopt a slightly modified approach. So let's see how certain other expenses are calculated under the activity-based budgeting approach. So the next expense that we will be taking up is the inspection cost. The facts of the case remains the same. The budgeted sales in units for the 50cc is 2000 and for the 1000cc it is 700 units. And the batch size in units, that is a number of units which are produced in each batch, is 50 units for the 50cc and 20 units for the 1000cc. So what are the number of batches? For 50cc, it is 2000 divided by 50, or it is 40 batches. And for 1000cc, it is 700 divided by 20, or 35 batches. Now, for each batch, the inspection time in hours is 100 hours for the 50cc and 50 hours for the 1000cc. So the inspection time in hours for all the batches, for the 50cc, it is 40 multiplied by 100 or 4000 hours. And for the 1000cc, it is 35 multiplied by 50 or 1750 hours. So the total of the inspection time for both the products is 4000 plus 1750 or 5750 hours. So we have established the cost driver. Now we will see the actual scenario. Now the inspection is done by quality control inspectors who actually physically inspect each and every motorcycle. They check the acceleration, braking, wheel alignment, etc. And for this, presently, there are 4 quality control inspectors in the company. And each inspector is paid an amount of $35,000 per annum. So what is the total inspection cost? It is $35,000. That is a salary for one quality control inspector multiplied by 4, because we've got totally 4 quality control inspectors. Now we are adopting activity-based budgeting. We have to try our level best to reduce the cost. Now look at these figures. The inspection time in hours required is only 5,750 hours in total next year. Now these 4 quality control inspectors have how much hours at their disposal? Let's check. Assume that there are 250 working days in a year. So 250 working days multiplied by 8 hours per day multiplied by 4. So what is the hours that they have at their disposal? It is 8,000 hours. But how many hours do we need next year? Just 5,750 hours. So do we need these 4 quality control inspectors? Let's check by cutting one out. So we are going to cut one person out, which means that instead of 4, the number of quality control inspectors is just 3. So the hours will work out to 6,000 hours. That is all that is required, because 5,750 hours is the inspection time required. So why do we need the 4th quality control inspector? We can sack him, and consequently the cost will be reduced. So now we are left with just 3 quality control inspectors. So it is 35,000 into 3. So the inspection cost works out to $105,000 only. See, just because we looked into the cost drivers, we were able to find out that the existing hours are far more than what is required. Now, what was our conclusion regarding the inspection cost? That is, we have to terminate one employee. But don't just write that comment that the final conclusion is to terminate one employee, because terminating an employee is not very easy. We cannot terminate an employee just like that, because we have to consider the termination benefits. If the termination benefits are really high, then it might outweigh the savings that we get out of terminating him. And one more thing that you have to consider is, if there is a sudden spurt in demand, then it's always better to have a spare capacity. Now, what are we doing? We are terminating him. So we've got just the right number of hours to do the work. So if there is a spurt in demand, we will not be able to do the inspection work. So these are points that you can add additionally in your answer. That is, before terminating an employee, the company has to consider the termination benefits and also the increase in demand that might come up in the future. So these 2 points will definitely impress the examiner, because performance management is a subject where the analysis of the situation will definitely give you marks. So in this particular method, we are not actually calculating the cost per driver, because these quality control inspectors are paid a monthly salary. So now under activity-based budgeting, basically we have studied 2 methods of calculating the budgeted overheads. The first method was to calculate the budgeted overhead cost by multiplying the number of cost drivers with the cost per driver, the method that we adopted for finding out the delivery cost of the truck. And the second method is, we calculate the budgeted overhead cost by estimating the resources required to satisfy the cost driver. That is the method that we did for the inspection cost. What was the resources that were required? The resources that were required were the number of quality control inspectors. And we found that one person could be terminated. So these are the 2 types in which the questions can come from activity-based budgeting as far as the numerics are concerned. Now, there is one more type of expense, which is the easiest of the lot. Let's take a look. Now, depreciation on factory building. What is the cost driver? Basically, there is no cost driver for depreciation of the factory building, simply because it just happens over time. So how do we budget such amounts? It's a fixed amount. It's just a fixed expense. So say it is $120,000 last year. This year also, it will be the same amount, that is $120,000. So such kind of expenses are known as sustaining cost. Activities that are included in budgets but are not related to any cost drivers. So we are done with the activity-based budgeting exercise. Now we will just look into the advantages and disadvantages of ABB. The first advantage is, it is suited when indirect costs are high. We know that whenever indirect costs are high, we can adopt activity-based costing or activity-based budgeting. And these indirect costs gets divided between the products based on cost drivers, which will be much more accurate. And the second advantage is, it reduces the costs by managing the cost drivers. We saw in the example of the truck where we reduce the cost by reducing the cost drivers. What was the cost drivers in that particular example? The number of deliveries. So we reduce the number of deliveries and thereby we could reduce the cost. And the third advantage is, it eliminates the non-value adding activities. As an example, you could say the number of inspections that are done. That is actually a non-value adding activity. What value does it add to the product? Just because a product is getting inspected, no value is getting added to the product. So how can we eliminate it? We can eliminate it by producing quality products the first time itself. That is, if the quality of the raw materials is good, if the labor is skilled, then ultimately we will get a good product. So the number of inspections can be drastically reduced, or it can even be eliminated. So that is the meaning of the sentence. It can eliminate the non-value adding activities. And the last advantage is, budgeted costs and profits are more accurate. So it's not like incremental budgeting where you just add plus 10% or plus 20%. We are basing our budgets based on cost drivers, which are much more accurate. Now, moving on to the disadvantages of ABB. The first disadvantage is, it is complex, costly, and time consuming. Moving to the second disadvantage, it is not suited when the overheads are low. Only for companies where the overheads are high, we need to adopt the ABB. So for companies where the direct expenses are high, usually for a labor-intensive company, we don't need to adopt the activity-based budgeting because the direct expenses can be directly traced to the product. There is no need to divide it based on the cost drivers. And the third disadvantage is many overheads are fixed. Example is depreciation on factory building. I already said that for depreciation on factory building, there are no cost drivers. So what are we doing in budgeting exercise? We are just taking a fixed amount. So for such kind of expenses, ABB is absolutely useless. And the last disadvantage is it requires a deep understanding. The person who's budgeting needs to have a deep understanding of the cost pools and the respective cost drivers. So we have come to an end of the session. We will do a quick recap before we wind up.